Companies built bigger batteries, introduced faster charging, and expanded charging networks. But this concern has still not disappeared completely. Whether it is Tesla or BYD, both have tried to reduce this problem. But a single solution that works everywhere and in every situation has still not been found. But now Mazda has taken a step that has caught the attention of the entire auto industry. The most surprising part is that this time they did not rely on a new battery or any groundbreaking charging technology. Instead, they decided to bring back an engine that most people believed had disappeared years ago. It is the same rotary engine that was once Mazda's identity but gradually disappeared from the market. Now, the question is, what is a 50-year-old technology doing in today's modern EV world? Has Mazda really adopted an idea that other companies kept ignoring? We will find out why Mazda made this decision, how this technology works, and whether it can really become a new challenge for big companies like Tesla and BYD. But before we move ahead in the video, if you have not subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to do it now. In this part of the video, the first thing to understand is why Mazda is considered a company that often chooses a different path from most other automakers. Whenever people talk about EVs or new technology, names like Tesla, BYD, and Toyota usually come first. Mazda, however, is not discussed as often. That does not mean the company is small or lacks technology. Instead, Mazda has always followed a different approach. Rather than chasing every new trend, the company first tries to understand it properly and then develops its own solution. Mazda began its journey in 1920 in Hiroshima, Japan. At that time, the company had no direct connection with automobiles. In the beginning, it manufactured cork products and machine tools. So, the company we know today for making cars actually started in a completely different industry. As time passed, Mazda decided to enter the automobile business. Then in 1931, Mazda introduced its first vehicle called the Mazda Go. It was a small three-wheeled truck. By today's standards, it looks like a very simple vehicle, but at that time, it was a major step for the company. This vehicle helped Mazda begin building its identity in the automobile industry. After that, the company gradually moved into passenger cars and started creating its own unique reputation. One of Mazda's biggest strengths is considered to be its engineering philosophy. The company does not focus only on introducing new things. Instead, it aims to develop technology that can remain useful for a long time. That is why Mazda sometimes makes decisions that initially seem unusual or a little risky. But the company has always believed that if a technology has potential, it can be improved and used effectively. If you have noticed, Mazda does not usually make huge claims like many other major automakers. It does not hold massive stage events every few months or present every new technology as something that will change the world. Instead, the company focuses more on engineering and product development. That is why many times Mazda's new technologies become widely discussed only after they have already reached customers on the road. This does not mean Mazda ignores marketing. Every company needs to tell people about its products. However, Mazda's reputation has been built more on its engineering decisions and driving experience. That is one of the reasons why many of its customers stay with the brand for years. When it comes to customer loyalty, Mazda is considered one of the companies whose buyers often choose another Mazda when purchasing their next car. One reason for this is that the company designs its vehicles not only around features, but around the overall driving experience. Mazda pays close attention to details like steering feel, vehicle balance, comfort, and dependable performance. Today, Mazda sells its vehicles in more than 120 countries around the world. This shows that the company is not limited to Japan and has a strong global presence. Every year, Mazda sells around 1.2 million vehicles. While this number is lower than giants like Toyota or Volkswagen, it is still enough to place Mazda among the world's leading automobile manufacturers. If we look at Mazda's current lineup, SUVs like the CX-5, CX-60, and CX-90 are among its most popular models. These vehicles have received strong demand in different countries. With these models, Mazda has focused on providing comfort, safety, solid build quality, and a balanced driving experience. That is why many people prefer them, not only for daily use, but also for long distance travel. Another thing that makes Mazda stand out is its effort to deliver a premium feeling without making its vehicles extremely expensive. The cabin materials, fit and finish, seat comfort, and interior design often remind people of cars that cost much more. Because of this, many buyers feel they are getting better quality for the price they pay. This overall philosophy is what makes Mazda different from many other companies. Instead of trying to sell the most cars or stay in the headlines all the time, the company focuses on creating solutions that are practical, long-lasting, and useful for customers. The complete story of the Rotary engine. The Rotary engine. Today this name is making headlines again. But its story did not begin today. It actually started many decades ago. To understand this story, we have to go back to the years after World War II. Hiroshima was the same city that witnessed massive destruction during the war. Many industries there were completely wiped out and it took years for them to recover. Mazda was also based in that city. At a time like that, most companies would have chosen the safer path. But Mazda decided to think differently. The company did not want to survive by simply building cars. It wanted to develop a technology that could give it a unique identity compared to other automakers. With this idea in mind, Mazda acquired the license for rotary engine technology in the 1960s. At that time, many major automobile companies had already looked at this technology, but most of them refused to adopt it. The reason was simple. On paper, the engine looked very interesting, but in real-world use, it had several challenges. Because of this, most companies believed it was not worth investing their time and money in the technology. The biggest problem was fuel consumption. The design of the rotary engine was completely different from a traditional piston engine. Because of this, the fuel could not burn as completely or as efficiently as it did in a conventional engine. This directly affected fuel economy. In other words, if two vehicles produce similar power, the one with the rotary engine could use more fuel in many situations. At a time when the world was gradually moving toward more fuel-efficient vehicles, this became a major challenge. The second major issue was heat management. This engine generated a lot of heat while operating. The high temperature affected several internal components. The most important of them was the apex seal. In simple words, the apex seal is a small but very important part that keeps proper sealing inside the engine. If it wears out too quickly, engine performance starts to drop and maintenance costs also increase. That is why for many years, people continued to question the reliability of the rotary engine. But instead of stepping back because of these challenges, Mazda kept working on it. After years of development, the company launched the Cosmos Sport in 1967. It was not just another new sports car. It was Mazda's attempt to prove that the rotary engine could be used successfully on the road. At that time, the car attracted worldwide attention. People saw that Mazda had turned the technology into a real production car that most other companies had almost given up on. Over the following years, the rotary engine became one of Mazda's biggest identities. The company used it in different models, and gradually the technology became closely linked with the Mazda name. It earned a special place especially among sports car enthusiasts. Many people admired its engine sound, smooth power delivery and unique driving feel. Now the question is, how does the rotary engine actually work? In a conventional engine, pistons move up and down to produce power. But that is not how a rotary engine works. Instead, it uses a triangular-shaped rotor that continuously spins inside a specially shaped housing. As the rotor turns, it draws in air and fuel, compresses the mixture, creates combustion, and produces power. Since it does not have many of the up and down moving parts found in a traditional engine, its design is very different. One of the biggest advantages of this design was its compact size. Compared to a conventional engine that required more space for the same job, a rotary engine could be made much smaller. It was often described as being compact enough to fit into a space roughly the size of a watermelon. Its smaller size meant the vehicle could be lighter, and it also gave engineers more flexibility in car design. That is one of the main reasons Mazda remains so enthusiastic about this technology. However, despite its advantages, its weaknesses never completely disappeared. Over time, emission regulations became much stricter around the world. People also started demanding vehicles with better fuel economy and lower maintenance. At the same time, the rotary engine continued to face challenges related to fuel efficiency and long-term durability. Mazda kept improving it, but market demand was changing quickly. Eventually, production of the RX-8 ended in 2012. The RX-8 was Mazda's last major production car powered by a rotary engine. After it was discontinued, most people believed that the rotary engine's journey had finally come to an end. It seemed like a technology that had earned a unique place in automotive history, but could not keep up with changing times. But the story did not end there. Mazda never completely forgot the rotary engine. The company's engineers continued working on it, asking whether its old weaknesses could be solved with modern technology. Many years later, that question received a new answer. The only difference was that this time the rotary engine was no longer meant to drive the wheels. Instead, it was given a completely new role in the world of electric vehicles. And that is where Mazda's new story truly begins. Why did Mazda bring back the rotary engine? Now the question is, when most companies around the world were focused on building bigger batteries and faster charging systems, why did Mazda decide to bring back its decades-old rotary technology? The answer lies in one problem that almost every buyer still thinks about today. Driving an electric vehicle is a great experience. It is quiet, delivers instant power, and feels comfortable in everyday driving. But as soon as people think about a long trip, one question always comes to mind. What if the battery runs low on the way? Will there be a charging station ahead? Will there be a queue? And how long will it take to recharge? This concern is still one of the biggest reasons why many people hesitate to buy an EV. A simple solution might seem to be a bigger battery, but a bigger battery does not only mean more driving range. It also increases the vehicle's weight, raises the price, and requires more raw materials to produce. So, simply making the battery larger cannot be the answer to every problem. Mazda looked at this issue differently. Mazda believed that what if the car did not need a very large battery all the time? What if it could drive mostly on its electric motor while the battery automatically recharged whenever needed? In that case, the driver would not have to keep worrying about charging again and again. This idea led to the concept of the range extender. Mazda used this technology in the MX-30R EV. At first glance, many people may think it is just another hybrid, but the way it works is quite different. The most important thing to understand is that the rotary engine in this vehicle does not drive the wheels directly. Normally a gasoline engine sends power to the wheels, but that is not how the MX-30R5 works. Here the wheels are powered entirely by the electric motor. This means the driving experience still feels like a pure EV. The rotary engine has only one job. When the battery charge drops below a certain level, it starts running and works like a generator to produce electricity. That electricity is then sent to the battery, ensuring the electric motor continues to receive the energy it needs. That is why Mazda does not see this as the return of the old rotary engine but as a completely new role for it. Earlier the engine directly powered the vehicle. Now its only job is to generate electricity. Because of this, the engine no longer has to operate at constantly changing speeds. It can run at a more stable and efficient operating range, which helps reduce many of its old weaknesses. What has changed in the new rotary engine? So far, we have understood why Mazda decided to bring back the rotary engine, but simply reusing the old engine would not have been enough. If all of its previous weaknesses had remained, this technology probably would not have lasted long again. That is why Mazda did not just bring back the engine. It redesigned several of its most important components. The first major improvement was direct injection. In older rotary engines, fuel could not burn as completely or as efficiently as it should. Because of this, fuel efficiency suffered and some fuel left the engine without being fully burned. In the new system, fuel is delivered into the combustion chamber much more precisely. This helps improve fuel utilization. It does not mean every problem has disappeared, but compared to the older version, the combustion process has been improved. Mazda also made major improvements to the combustion system itself. When fuel burns more efficiently, the engine also operates more efficiently. At the same time, less energy is wasted unnecessarily. That is why the new rotary engine has been designed to deliver more balanced performance than before. Heat has always been one of the biggest complaints about the rotary engine. High temperatures placed extra stress on many internal components. This time, Mazda has given much greater importance to thermal management. The entire process of how heat moves inside the engine and how quickly it is removed has been redesigned. Along with that, the cooling channels have also been redesigned. The job is to deliver cooling more effectively to different parts of the engine. If the engine temperature stays under control, the internal components experience less stress. Mazda has also improved the airflow around the engine so that excess heat can escape more quickly. Another important upgrade is the use of diamond-like carbon coating or DLC coating. This is a special hard surface coating applied to components that experience constant friction. The advantage is that the parts wear out more slowly and continue performing consistently for a longer period. Besides the automobile industry, this type of coating is also used in several other high-performance industries. If there has always been one widely discussed weakness of the rotary engine, it has been the apex seals. These small components are responsible for maintaining proper sealing inside the engine. In older engines, they tended to wear out relatively quickly, increasing maintenance concerns. Mazda says that this time it has used new materials and a new design for the apex seals to improve the durability. Their real performance will only become clear after long-term use, but the company has clearly given this area special attention. The goal of all these changes is the same: reliability or making the engine more dependable than before. The rotary engine has always been known for its compact size and smooth operation. Mazda has tried to keep those strengths while reducing its old weaknesses as much as possible. Even today, the compact size of this engine is considered one of its biggest advantages. Compared to a conventional engine, it is much smaller. So, it requires less space inside the vehicle. This gives engineers more flexibility in vehicle design and also makes it easier to arrange the other systems more efficiently. Another advantage of its smaller size is better weight distribution. When the engine takes up less space and its weight is well balanced, the overall balance of the vehicle can also be improved. This has a direct effect on the driving experience, especially while cornering and during normal handling. That is why Mazda does not see the new rotary engine as simply the return of an old technology. Instead, the company has tried to redesign it to fit modern EV systems. How successful these changes are in the real world will only become clear through customer experience over the coming years. Its impact in Europe and around the world. Over the past few years, electric vehicle sales have grown rapidly across Europe. Many countries have introduced new policies, offered tax incentives, and encouraged people to buy electric cars. But along with this growth, another challenge has also become clear. EV numbers have increased much faster than charging infrastructure has expanded in many places. Inside major cities, finding a charging station is usually not difficult. But once you leave the city for a long journey, chargers become less common in many areas. Even after reaching a charging station, drivers sometimes have to wait because other vehicles are already charging. That is why for many people, the charging experience is still not as simple as they originally expected. Countries such as Germany, France, and the Netherlands have seen steady growth in EV adoption. Their charging networks are considered well developed, but the experience is still not the same everywhere. Large cities and major highways usually have better charging facilities, while smaller towns and less populated areas may have more limited options. That is why many buyers still want a vehicle that offers electric driving for everyday use while reducing charging concerns during long distances travel. At the same time, another shift has appeared in the market. Earlier, many people believed the future belonged only to pure electric vehicles. But recently, demand for hybrids and range extender technologies has also been increasing. The reason is not just the technology itself, but also people's everyday needs. Not everyone has a charger at home. Not everyone drives the same distance, and charging networks are not equally developed in every region. Because of this, many customers want a vehicle that provides the benefits of electric driving while also offering extra confidence on longer trips. Mazda seems to have recognized this changing trend early. The company did not assume that every customer would want only a large battery either over the next few years. Instead, it saw that many people wanted the electric driving experience without depending entirely on the charging network. That is why Mazda developed models like the MX-30REV. The company's goal was not to replace pure EVs, but to provide another option for customers with different needs. In other words, if someone mainly drives in the city using electric mode, but also takes longer trips from time to time, this system could be a more practical choice. It is also worth noting that Mazda chose this direction when almost the entire automobile industry was moving in the same direction. The company tried to think differently, but that does not mean it opposed battery electric vehicles. It simply believed that not every market around the world has the same needs. Some regions already have strong charging networks while others still need further development. In that kind of environment, different technologies can continue to have a place. That is why Mazda's strategy is being discussed today. It is not just the story of a new engine. It is also about understanding changing market needs and trying to build solutions around them. Time will decide which technology customers ultimately prefer in the years ahead. But one thing can certainly be said: instead of simply following the trend, Mazda first tried to understand the market and then chose its own path. What does this mean for Tesla and BYD? Now the question is, if Mazda's approach proves successful, how much could it affect major companies like Tesla and BYD? The answer is not straightforward because all three companies have very different strategies and ways of thinking. Let's start with Tesla. From the beginning, Tesla has focused entirely on electric vehicles. The company believes that the future belongs to pure EVs, and it has built its entire strategy around that idea. Large batteries, the supercharger network, and a software-driven experience are Tesla's biggest strengths. However, the success of this model also depends heavily on charging infrastructure. Where charging networks are well developed, owning a pure EV becomes much easier. But in places where charging facilities are still limited, some customers continue to have concerns. BYD, on the other hand, follows a different approach. The company has been working not only on electric vehicles but also on hybrid models for many years. BYD's biggest strength is its large manufacturing network. It produces its own batteries, manufactures many key components in-house, and builds vehicles on a massive scale. That is why it can offer competitive pricing in many markets. When it comes to Mazda, its focus is a little different from both of these companies. Mazda is not trying to sell the highest number of vehicles, nor is it trying to build the biggest battery. The company's identity has always been centered around engineering and the driving experience. That is why it developed a solution like the range extender, where the main driving experience remains electric while a small rotary generator provides extra confidence whenever needed. Another important thing about Mazda is that it usually positions itself closer to the premium segment. This means it does not compete only on price. Instead, the company tries to offer better build quality, improved balance, and a unique driving feel. So, its strategy is not about directly competing with Tesla or BYD, but about offering a different kind of choice. The competition here is not only about scale, but also about ideas. Tesla's strength is its EV ecosystem. BYD's strength is its manufacturing scale. Mazda meanwhile is trying to find a different path through its engineering approach. Which strategy will prove most successful in the future will depend on the market and customer needs. But one thing is clear: Mazda has shown that not every EV problem has to be solved with bigger batteries or more charging stations. Sometimes a different way of thinking can also provide an answer. Future plans and the hydrogen version. Mazda is not only looking at today's needs, but is also trying to prepare for the future. One part of that vision is the hydrogen rotary engine. Although this technology is still in its early stages, Mazda has filed patents related to it, showing that the company is exploring different energy options for the future. Mazda's idea is that just as the rotary engine now works as a generator to produce electricity, the same system could one day run on hydrogen. In other words, instead of designing an entirely new vehicle platform, the company hopes to adapt the same core technology for a different fuel. For now, this remains a future plan, but Mazda continues its research in this direction. Mazda is not the only company talking about hydrogen. Japan has been investing in hydrogen technology for many years. The Japanese government and several automakers see hydrogen as one of the possible energy options for the future. Germany is also working on a number of hydrogen projects, especially for industry and heavy transportation. South Korea has launched several initiatives to build a hydrogen ecosystem, while some countries in the Middle East are making major investments in the production and export of green hydrogen. However, one important point should be understood. Building a hydrogen-powered vehicle alone is not enough. It also requires hydrogen refueling stations, a supply network, and safe storage systems. Without that infrastructure, it will not be easy for the technology to reach everyday customers. That is why hydrogen is still seen as a future possibility, but large-scale adoption may take time. Mazda's unique idea is that if hydrogen infrastructure becomes strong enough in the future, the company may not need to design a completely new vehicle. Instead, it wants to develop a platform that can be adapted for different energy sources. In other words, the same system that works today as a gasoline-powered range extender could also be adapted to run on hydrogen in the future. If that becomes possible, it could represent another step in the evolution of vehicle energy systems. The world first depended mainly on traditional gasoline and diesel engines. Then came hybrids and battery electric vehicles. Now, some experts believe hydrogen could find its place in certain applications over the coming years. However, no one knows exactly when or how widely that will happen. That is why Mazda is not relying entirely on a single technology. Instead, it is continuing to explore different possibilities. The company's goal is not to predict the future, but to keep practical options ready that can meet changing market needs. How quickly hydrogen develops in the coming years will depend largely on infrastructure costs and government policies. If you found today's information useful and want to keep watching simple, reliable, and easy to understand videos about cars, EVs, and new technology, make sure to subscribe to the